Hello everybody, my name is Steve Kell and we're going to be starting a painting today using a photo reference. But if I was out on location, I would begin the exact same way. When you embark on a journey, you want to have an idea of where you're going, right? Well, I'd like to show you a simple guide which will get you started on the right foot. Remember, a good beginning can alleviate problems later and will assure you of a successful painting. Here we have the photo on the left and my initial thumbnail sketch on the right. Talking about the photo for a minute, this is La Jolla Cove, California. I really like that location. And what I like especially about the area is this ability to come up on the left, come around, hitting a nice area there that could act as your sweet spot or focal point if you want, and then your eye can drop back down here. There's really a number of things that I like about it, but in anything that you're going to paint, you have to kind of decide what is it you like the most, what do you want to portray, why are you even painting it, you know. So I do like the light on the cliff out there, and the other thing I really like is the cast shadow of the palm trees across the sand and then into the water. So that really kind of makes this painting, plus the tall palm trees stretching up all the way that into the sky. Now on the right, basically, is a thumbnail sketch that doesn't have any value yet. Okay, here's my initial sketch. What I tried to do is capture just the major elements. In other words, the horizon line, the shape of the cliff, the water line, and you're looking at basically, are these interesting forms? Are there any repetitive forms? Do we have too much of one form and not enough of the other? And right off the bat, and the reason why we do these thumbnail sketches is that I realized that I've got too much sky. I wanted to get the palm trees in, and yet it's not going to be possible the way they are now. They're going to be shorter trees, or we're going to have more water, but we're going to raise the cliff a little bit. When you have a point of interest, you want to make sure that point of interest is sitting somewhere in one of the thirds that we talk about with a golden mean. If you can, it's not absolutely necessary. You just don't want it in the middle. And it's nice to have more than one point of interest so your eye can jump from one spot to the next. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, is you always want your eye to travel around the painting in some form. Okay? So next we'll go into putting in the shade and the shadow. Moving on to the value sketch, where we supposedly positioned everything that we wanted on our canvas. Now it's time to put the sun into the situation and indicate exactly where the sun is striking these different shapes and forms. So now we have the shadows indicated, got cast shadows. I've also indicated some darker areas where I want the eye to kind of follow through, ping around on these different spots. Now this whole shadowed area is really the backbone of your work, and it's very important to hold on to this structure as you go into the next stage of your underpainting and then into your finish work also. One other thing I wanted to point out is that in design, you have to make sure, or I wanted to make sure, that this gap was here, this part of the painting, so that the eye can go up into the sky and the trees. Other than that, let's move on now to the underpainting. So here's what we have going on. I've taken a very thin wash of transparent earth yellow, and remember that I've decided to raise the horizon line a little bit, so you can, and if you have trouble knowing exactly where to put something from the photo to your canvas, you can always find the middle this way, the middle that way. For instance, that edge is right about in the center. So I've decided I'm going to raise it up a little bit. Here's the center of my canvas, and that edge is right about there. But you notice in my thumbnail sketch, it was low. So we corrected that with this part. The same goes for, if you're wondering where the steps are, look where the steps, hold your brush up like that. It's about in the middle. Brush goes in the middle, more or less. I'm at an angle, so I can't tell for sure. Same thing with anything you're painting and you want in a relationship to a rock or to a point or to a tree. You always take your, want to know the angle from the top of the tree to the cliff top, like that. Hold the same, come over here, and you can see that it's a little different because I've put the trees closer into the middle. So I can change that or not. It's my painting. I can decide maybe I don't like those trees going right there anyway, and they should be over more about in here. That gives the painting a little bit more balance. So from here, okay, so you take, we just have the outline, right? So now I'm going to take and find with the same wash of transparent yellow earth, I'm going to fill in, actually got a little bit of green in there too, but I'm just going to basically fill in this area for now in shadow. I'm going to keep a little bit open there because I know that's going to be some light in that area of the steps. It's going to be some light here. So if I want to fine tune that a little bit, I take my rag, paper towel, and fine tune that area. You can see here the area of the hedge. There's a walkway there, so I'm going to leave that light there. And okay, so a little bit more paint with a little bit more solid bunch of paint right in here because I want to hit this area harder to indicate that that's going to be solid shadow. Up in here we got, like we said, trees in here, tree here, tree there, palm tree, some trees in there. Notice now that I don't care about the actual exact shape of something now because this is transparent paint. I can get rid of this very easily. It's very thin. I'm of the school that the thinner you can be to begin with, it makes it easier to correct your mistakes to begin with. If you start putting white in right away and try to mix exact value, then you have a problem if you decide, well, I don't like that shape of that. I don't like this, or I didn't do it quite right. So, now you've got this problem of, now what do you do? Notice I'm keeping this a little darker right in there too. This is going to be darker here, dark in there. We're all about value now. Finding the shadow. There's a shadow in there. We'll have to display that part by ear. And shadow in here. Now you can kind of take a look. Now for this next step, all these shadows of the sand, on the sand of the palm trees coming out is what makes this difference in this painting. That's what makes it. So I wanted to indicate for now just a little bit of where the actual surf and the white water comes in. So that's about that area in there. It's not exact. I don't have to worry about exact lines. So the shadow is going to come out in here. So there's going to be shadow here, shadow there. And we can do that to indicate if we want. This is all shadow. And shadow. And then the rest of it's shadow. Let's put that up like that. It's not an exact science. Okay, next step. We're going to keep on going, keep on trucking right here. Obviously, we have to differentiate now a little bit more because I want to go darker and darker. So how are we going to do that? I've got another, you can either go with a Viridian that's transparent. You can go with transparent earth red, which is, I don't think I have that right now. But you can go with alizarin crimson. It's all transparent. We can throw that in there like that. Get a little bit more red going. These are going to be very dark in here, so those are the darkest spots. Dark in here. Remember, this is very, very thin. Very, very thin. Now, if you want to, I'm not trying to get the exact color, but I can make some color with a transparent Viridian or phthalo green. I like phthalo green actually. When you thin it down with another color, when you thin it down with red, it's perfect. So there's that. So we can make our, I'm not going to worry about the sky yet. I just want to get in these values. And they're not exact values, of course, because it's still going to have to go darker. But now I can differentiate a little bit more what's going on. Now from here, I'll go even one step farther. But for now, I'm going to go with a little blue. What blue is transparent? I can use cobalt. I can use ultramarine. I'm going to go blue in the sand to begin with, just so that gives me a shadow, so it's not, so I can kind of find the exact, not the exact, but a good area that works to indicate the shadow. Might not be exactly what works in the photo. It doesn't have to, because this is your painting. It's my painting. So I'm gonna put this down as blue. and it's going to come right like that. Now I'm going to continue to build this up a little bit using transparent paint to a certain extent. And then I'll show you where we go from here. Notice I've added a lot more dark areas here. Once I have these dark areas in place, now I'm going to go back in, remember, with this Gamsol and a little blue, I'm going to indicate shadow again. So now I can pull out the shadow a little bit more. It's not going to be exact maybe, but I want to indicate these areas of shadow. Shadow in here of the, we can pull out some of that light later on if we want to. Maybe there's some shadow in there. So once we have that in, whoops, get away. Don't need that much glue in there. Remember, it's all transparent, so you can do anything you want to with it. Remember also my mantra is you can always go lighter with something, with oil. And if you get it, in other words, if you get it too dark, you can always go lighter. But sometimes it's really hard with oil, unless you let it dry, to go darker, because it picks up the underlying color, especially depending on how thick it is. Okay, I'm going back now. We've got to create some sand, so I'm going back in a lighter, with our lighter tones of transparent. And I'm going to indicate where the, going to go light here too. Here. This edge. Right in here, where the light coming on the. Okay, so sand in here. And sand up in here. Now we want to fill in the rest of this. I'm going to take cobalt and fill in the water for now. It's a little dark to begin with, so just add a little bit of Gamsol. You can differentiate later where it comes in. And sky up above the water here, that's the water line. And the last thing we want to do in our underpainting, this is just an underpainting, don't forget, is grab a little bit of whatever color you want. I like to use a very thin orange. And there you have your underpainting.